Hey there, everybody. Franklin Taggart here, and it is time for a virtual coffee break. I've got my coffee. Grab your beverage and let's chat for just a minute. I had a conversation earlier today with a client who is really struggling this year, kind of coping with and recovering from and grieving from some pretty significant losses. And she mentioned that this year at Thanksgiving, it's been really hard for her to access any kind of sense of gratitude about anything. And there were some things that I wanted to share here that kind of came out of that conversation. I feel like that it's important to understand that I think that gratitude actually might be one of the stages of grief. Elizabeth Kubler Ross went through and identified several stages of grieving that people tend to go through when they're adjusting to a big loss in their lives, and sometimes not even a big loss. Sometimes it's just a loss. But the stages that she identified were things like denial, shock, anger, bargaining. And then ultimately surrender and acceptance. And I honestly think that there is a stage beyond acceptance, or maybe it's before, who knows? I don't know that these stages actually can go in an order. I think they just kind of happen as they happen. But I think one of the things that's really important is to understand the role of gratitude in our grieving process. And one of the things that we talked about in the session today that I feel like is really a good place to start is maybe you can't feel gratitude right now, but you can be aware of what it is that you miss. What is it that you miss? What are the things that are missing now as a result of this loss? And in the case of this person, they had lost a significant relationship, and then their parent was going through the early stages of dementia, and they were starting to process the losses that go along with that. In addition to that, this person had gone through a major career transition just about a year and a half ago. In the midst of COVID, they decided that they wanted to start their own business. And so they left behind a fairly stable career path and entered into the world of entrepreneurship, which has its ups and downs. So there was probably some grief and loss that goes along with that as well. But one of the things that we talked about is, why don't you make a list of the things that you miss about all that you've lost, and spend some time with the things that you miss, because absolutely there's probably some gratitude attached to those things. Now, it may be that the absence is too great, the loss feels too acute right now, but if you just start by thinking about what you miss, the gratitude may follow that. Now, the other thing that I looked at as far as gratitude being a stage of the grieving process, in my own experience, I remember going through, when my dad died a few years ago, and I remember kind of the early stages of, there was some relief, there was still a little bit of shock and not really fully accepting that he was gone. And every time that I would drive past the nursing home where he lived for the last months of his life, I would feel like that I needed to stop and go in. And one of the things that started to happen just in the last several months is that I started to remember things about my dad that I appreciate, and things that I've become aware of that were kind of passed on to me in terms of his character and his traits, both good and bad. But I feel like that there is the acceptance stage that we go through. But I think that the gratitude stage is a different piece piece of that. The acceptance is just saying, okay, I'm okay with things as they are now. I'm learning to live with the whole, and it's all okay. I'm not in a place where I'm railing against the universe or God or whatever and being angry and trying to control the situation and trying to bargain my way out of it. I have adapted. But beyond that, or maybe around that, there is an appreciation for the loss, for what's been lost. And what I think maybe what is retained even after the loss has happened. So we did some pretty important work in that session this morning, and I feel like that there's something there for all of us to consider, that gratitude may very well be a part of the grieving process. Again, it's not at the beginning. It's not at the beginning of the experience, as far as I'm concerned. Most of the time in the beginning of the experience, we do go through that shock and denial and adaptation and all of that kind of stuff. But the gratitude does come as we remember and appreciate the things that that we gained from what was lost. So as you're starting to go into the Thanksgiving season, if you're feeling like it's difficult this year for you to find a sense of gratitude, maybe one of the things that you could look at is to start with what's missing and appreciate that you at one time had something that meant a lot to you, and you are you're grateful for the place that that person or that thing or that experience had in your life. So those are my thoughts for today. It's kind of a shorty, but I hope that this is something that will spur you to think. And if you are having a difficult time this year, especially as we go into the holidays, finding things like gratitude, joy, all of those tidings that we're supposed to have. If you're struggling with that kind of stuff, I would welcome you to get in touch, and at a minimum, we can just talk through what's going on and maybe find a new level of maybe a new level of just being okay with what you're going through and not resisting it. Maybe that's all that needs to happen right now. But if that sounds like something that you might like, I invite you always to remember that my first coaching session is a free one, and it's called Your Best Next Step. And the Best Next Step call can be had by just going to bit.ly/best next step call. There are no spaces, no gaps, all one word, Best Next Step Call. And if you can't remember that, just get in touch with me through my website, franklintaggart.com. Thanks so much, as always, for your time and your attention, and I'll look forward to another coffee break tomorrow. So long.